Well, hello everyone. My name is Maciej Švirk. I work at Fastly as a security enterprise architect. And yeah, for many years in cybersecurity, we've been dealing with this paradigm of blocking versus allowing traffic. Not really anything else, right? With sophisticated attackers, though, it's becoming less efficient, less effective, this approach. And we have to move away from simply building taller walls, and we have to do other things like introducing active friction into the attack workflow. In Fastly, we do that with strategic use of deception, where we introduce the friction into these attacks. We want to make the attackers, as the slide says, we want to make them cry, we want to make them frustrated with what is happening, and hopefully to go away. So at Fastly, we of course deal with automated threats, with bots, with all kinds of fun stuff, day in, day out. It's really easy to forget that it's not just machines; it's the real humans behind these attacks, and yeah, they just chose a shady way of making money, I guess. But importantly, they're still humans. They have feelings, they've got egos, they've got emotions, they've got brains that make choices and that make decisions. And luckily for us, there is a whole lot of other people who spent their lives researching these topics. So behavioral scientists and psychologists have done a lot of research, and this is what we are using. This is the intelligence that we are tapping into and repurposing those learnings in the context of cybersecurity. So humans are presented with choices every day, and those choices are impacted by both, or influenced rather, by internal and external factors. We call them nudge and sludge in this context, which is funny names, but nudge is really designed as the path of the least resistance. Think about it as maybe your watch giving a little notification that, okay, maybe you should stand up and go for a walk, or you have a password strength meter or two-factor authentication that's very well integrated into your application, into your website, and it just makes it seamless and zero friction. It's awesome. It makes the desired outcome easy to achieve. That's a good way to put it. On the other side, you have the sludge, which is the exact opposite. You've got basically weaponized friction. And what I mean by that is that you purposefully make your application hard to use. You make that outcome harder to achieve. An example of that could be, let's say, making it super hard to unsubscribe from a product, or cancel your gym membership, or maybe the digital world having to complete a CAPTCHA. Of course, CAPTCHA is a well-meaning mechanism, but at the end of the day, it's really introducing more friction and more unnecessary annoyance to our users than the actual security benefits. However, what we can do as a strategy, we can use that. We can use that sludge, and we can actually actively manufacture it for attackers. And this is really what we then feed into our deception strategy. So we're not eliminating it, we are harnessing the good of it and pretty much using it offensively back at the attackers. Now, the deception itself, what is it exactly? Well, it's not something that we have developed at Fastly. It's a tactic, it's a strategy that's been around forever. Think about in animal kingdom, you've got animals using mimicry for survival. You also have humans using it in warfare for millennia, like the famous Trojan horse on the picture. So we are just using these proven strategies, once again, in the context of cybersecurity. And the good thing is that it scales really well in terms of complexity, because you can have anything as simple as a honeypot on one end, but then on the other end of the spectrum, you can have active gaslighting of the attacker, where you're altering your environment so effectively they really have no idea what is real and what is not. And am I getting blocked? Am I not getting blocked? What's happening? Now, it's important to frame this correctly as well. We're not playing dirty with the attackers. We're using this ethical, proactive defense. We're just using some of the techniques that are also used by the attackers, things like misdirection and stealth. And once again, we're using that to protect our customers' digital assets. So as mentioned earlier, we can harness this sludge for good, right? What I mean by that is that when we deal with the attackers, we can, instead of blocking them, and I will go into more detail into this in just a second, we can introduce this synthetic friction, this extra layers of slush that they have to go through to increase their costs, to make them waste time, to make them waste the effort, and really drive up the costs, just to make the attack too expensive to start or maintain. And we're not just slowing them down, we are really actively influencing their decisioning and the decision making, because by making this experience super frustrating for them, we are pushing them towards just killing the project and moving on to something else and making you less desirable as a target. Ultimately, what we want to do, we want to make them angry, we want to make them annoyed, we want to make them cry in frustration. Now, cyber operations, they are just like any other business, right? They operate a lot like any other technical or like small tech startup, which means that it's run as a business and the decisions are made as a business as well. And what we can do, we can start driving up their costs, because when we introduce this uncertainty or when we introduce this additional friction, we can actively impact their bottom line. And these costs are of two types. So the first one is the obvious one, is the quantitative costs. Cost of hiring people, cost of building the team, developing the tools, building the code, all of those things. And also potentially lost opportunity, where you could have been doing something else with your time, where you actually get some return on investment rather than just wasting time. But the other category is more interesting, I think, is the qualitative costs. And these are often less understood by by the defenders, because they don't necessarily understand how these cyber operations actually function. So they just ignore these costs and they don't take it into account, but they're equally as important as the quantitative costs. The first one is the reputational one. I mean, it doesn't matter if you are a hacker for hire or operate at a nation state level, let's say. Reputation is everything. So yeah, it's very important to keep that in check. The second one is informational. Basically what it means is rendering all of the recon, all the data that you've gathered, all the data just becomes worthless through this process. But the third one is super important, especially in this context of deception, because the psychological cost and psychological damage is what we want to achieve, right? We want attackers to get confused. They get confused because they don't really know what's going on. They haven't run into this sort of approach before. They get stressed because they're missing their deadlines, and then, of course, frustration and shame kicks in because you're ultimately not delivering on your project and you're not delivering what you were hired to do. So by adding all of these costs, we are making your organization a less profitable, less desirable target, and we want attackers to move on to a less protected ones instead. The concept of the deception is pretty simple, or straightforward at least, but the implementation is not always trivial. Think about something like a honeypot, right? I mentioned a couple of times. Honeypot is simple, it's a duplicate server, you route traffic to it, you gather some data, do things. However, with sophisticated attackers, they notice. They notice that it's not the real thing, something looks off, and immediately they stop the attack, because why would they continue? And the deception fails. But they will come back because they will retool, and they basically know that which is not great. To have effective deception in place, you need to instead find a good balance between these three parameters. And the first one is the fidelity, which is basically, does it look real? The second one is isolation, like is it safe and is it separate from my production systems so I can mess with the attackers in there? And third one is the cost. Is it actually realistic? Is it real for me to maintain in one long term in terms of cost? And usually you probably could choose two of them, and it's commonly the case. So it's not really great. And recently the cloud infrastructure has made it easier to build something more effective at the edge or in the cloud. So yeah, the teams do have access to better solutions, but with something like Fastly, you can achieve that sweet spot without building anything at all, because we take care of the deployment, the management, maintenance, scaling, all of that for you on our edge instead. So the more effective approach that we are implementing, we're moving away from that binary blocking, allowing approach, and we're bringing more sophisticated techniques to our customers. So using account takeover as a common example, on the left you have the standard blocking approach. Attacker launches an attack, you notice it, there's a rule in place or something, and they get blocked and they go away. But now they know that and they will adapt, they will change their tools, they'll come back, and the cycle will continue pretty much forever. Compared it to the right-hand side, where imagine you have something like Fastly's next generation WAF with the deception implemented in place. So when the attack is launched, and when we identify those malicious requests, we will instead deceive the attacker. And what I mean by that is that the attacker can run through their entire list of credentials, let's say in this ATO attack, and all they get back is basically nothing. All the credentials fail. And they're left wondering, like, well, what's going on? Is it my data? Is it the credentials? Is it my tooling? They waste time, they waste effort, they go in circles, they eventually get frustrated because they don't really understand what is happening, and they go away. So that's the key difference between the deception versus basic blocking. Now, this is sort of a visualization of that flow, and specifically in the account takeover use case, the way it works, when we identify those malicious requests, we actually swap out the password in the login post, and when we send it to your origin, to your login server, it will respond with a real failed login response because it's got no way of knowing it's not the real request, right? So we're not blocking the user, we're not doing anything like that, we're just basically almost tricking your origin into sending a 401 unauthorized, let's say, back, and that is then proxied back to the attacker as well. And the good thing is that you can also layer it with all the other things that our platform can offer, so things like rate limiting and all the other signals, bot signals, and other tools that we have at your disposal as well. Now with the Fastly platform is really secure by design. We do more than just deception, and you may know us as a CDN as well, but really we're going deeper into this defense in depth approach as well. So secure by design, as I mentioned, we have implemented things like memory isolation, immutability, ephemerality, all of these core principles to make sure the platform in its core is secure. It's not an afterthought when it comes to security and Fastly. Once you have that robust core, you can start layering things like the DDoS protection, bot management, AI bot management, next-gen WAF, rate limiting, geo-blocking, all the other tools, of course, on top of that, to minimize the avenues that the attackers have into your systems and basically stop those attacks before they reach your infrastructure. And what we want to ultimately do, we want to enable your teams to do things. You shouldn't have to compromise between speed and business outcomes and security. And we want to make sure that you're enabled and empowered to ship new features at speed, at velocity, without increasing your risk profile. And what's next for Fastly? Well, we already have deception implemented as part of our DDoS protection, and as you saw, now it's part of our next-gen WAF as well. And going forward, we will be, the roadmap will focus on natively implementing these deception features into the rest of our security portfolio. We're also evolving from simple request response workflow that I described to creating more comprehensive deception environments. Think about it as a digital labyrinth almost, where the attacker gets lost because whatever they make, whatever change they make, whatever pivot they make, they'll just run into another dead end. And all of this opens this concept of attack observability and the power of attack observability. As Ryan Petrig and Kelly Shortridge mentioned in 2021, and Kelly is our current Chief Product Officer, by the way, the modern cloud infrastructures enable bring the deception techniques closer to the engineering teams. And by owning this space, you can not just block the attacks, but you can learn from them and use that intelligence to continuously fortify your defenses and strengthen your security posture. And that's a wrap. Yeah, thank you very much.